What is God over politics? I remember as a little boy growing up in the west side of San Bernardino, California. I'd grab my bike and just ride it out as far as I can go without forgetting my way back home. I remember coming to a neighborhood where all the houses had perfectly green landscape yards. The streets were clean, the cars were nice, and the people waved at me as I rode by. Something had drastically changed. Somewhere between the streets I lived in and the streets I was now riding through, there had been a shift, a very positive shift. That was a drop of water on a seed that had been planted in my mind years before. My family and I escaped the Salvadorian Civil War and migrated to the States in the early 80s. I witnessed my father turn to alcohol and cigarettes to cope with the unimaginable stress of being responsible for a family of 13 during that time, sacrificing all he had, all he knew for a gambled opportunity with no guarantees. I also witnessed my mother giving up everything to give us a chance of survival. However, to deal with her unthinkable stress, she turned to God. I remember her singing hymns as bombs went off and hovered over us with her outstretched arms like a mother hen when protecting her chicks. I didn't know it at the time how much she was emulating God. All I knew is that in the midst of the horror, she found a way to make us feel safe. That is where I believe the seed was planted. Growing up in a bad neighborhood is like living in another world in a different universe in some ways, but in the most essential ways, it's not much different at all. The same basic human questions that science can't answer still persist. Who are we? What is our purpose? How did we get here? Why do we exist? Why do these questions persist to begin with? Since we know science can't answer that, though the practice can give us clues, we have to step into a different realm. A realm where physics is as useless as a car without an engine. We're only left with reason and philosophical concepts and ideas, but most importantly, a deep longing for truth. I began to ask questions. Why is our neighborhood so dirty, disrespected, which was proven by all the graffiti, trash, and broken glass in the streets? Why is there no ownership pride? Why so dangerous? And why is no one doing anything about it? Another drop. School wasn't much better, though socially it was great. I was one of the lucky kids that was able to use a different address in order to attend a school that was out of my district. So there was a mix of teachers there. The Marxist ideologues were still in the minority at the time, though their presence was still there. Mecha Club had the loudest socialism evangelists in the school, but nobody took them serious. I did. For about 5 minutes, I had an honest interest and conversation with a Mecha group leader. I quickly found out that I wasn't welcome in that group for multiple reasons. One, I was an immigrant. They were Chicanos. Two, I was Salvadorian. They were Chicanos. 3, I was a natural capitalist. They were socialists. 4, I was hopeful and grateful about our country. Well, they were socialists. Another drop. Back in the hood, I had learned to adapt. I embraced the culture and learned to navigate with my conscience as my co-pilot. I continued asking the important questions, though my peers were typically not interested, unless we were high, of course. I witnessed the same human character patterns in the hood as I did in the war. Humans don't change, environments do. By my late teens, I had completely abandoned my morals just to make a little money, betraying my conscience and my mother's teachings. A few years later, at my lowest point, I had a supernatural experience that sent my life into an upward spiral on the search for truth. That is when I finally met God and submitted to Him and His design. I'll save the details for another day. Another drop. Actually, this was more like a waterfall. 3 years after graduating high school, still clueless about a career. Though we dabbled in music, it was very clear there wasn't a path forward there. I went into construction and eventually partnered up with a client and started a fencing company. It took off instantly, and I was ready for it, energetic and enthusiastic about it and its potential. That was short-lived. One day, my business partner pulled me into his office and insisted on making changes that conflicted with my morals. I had to make a decision. We split up, and I tried to maintain the business on my own, but failed miserably. However, I never second-guessed my decision, as I knew it was correct. God made that very clear to me. I learned a lot. Another drop. 2007, I get married and immediately start a family. I'm now paying attention to things I previously ignored. School choices, food prices, labels on food, vehicle options, children programming, etc. I began to understand that it doesn't matter how much you try to live your life ignoring politics. Politics will inevitably come knocking at your door. And before you open the door, you'll realize that it already let itself in. The political world is a beast all on its own. It's where the worst characteristics of mankind congregate with smiles of comfort, masking its salivating wolf teeth, starving for money, power, and control of the masses. How do you navigate in such a world knowing that you have a God-given duty of stewardship and stay clean in the mud at the same time? I've seen many try and fail. It's full of traps that cater to our worst weaknesses. It's a valley of death to the soul. No wonder most people rather just not know. Ignorance can in fact be bliss, but every bubble pops. So where do we go next? God always has something to say about everything, at every step of life, in every culture, and every situation, from the beginning to eternity. There is nothing new under the sun. Humans don't change, as much as we may want to believe they do. I've concluded that the only way we can ever have a chance of not drowning in these never-ending waves of moral decay without being woefully ignorant is to set our compass in front of us, unshakably north. If God is over family, then our family will prosper. If God is over country, then our country will prosper. Then it only follows. God over politics. Welcome.